content over everything.
So I'm glad I was absolved from that particular takedown. Thank you. Lister, the far right. Go. Get him. Go, boy. Go, Lister. Get him. Make a documentary out of it. Make a documentary. Huh?
What an absolute state of Wasteman Corner, man. What an absolute state of Wasteman Corner.
What? I thought it was like
my fault, yeah.
What sort of footage?
Obviously.
Of the left of entrance.
Oh look, the police is here. Nice.
You don't get what I'm saying?
Read that coming in.
Her Majesty's constabulary.
Look at it on the side. He's getting the money.
Oh yeah, nice. Everybody fucked off now.
Come on, Pavlov.
Everybody left.
Give us some intellectual debate.
Okay, right. Let's go for an actual debate. I was looking for somebody who would defend Iran in the current situation, but
defend Iran.
Yeah, it's not as easy to find a person like that. Yeah, because I wanted kind of a debate. You know, it's no fun if I just keep talking shit about Iran. And,
Would you like us? I have a question that lots of people ask me all the time.
Go ahead.
It's where you sit politically. Do you want to talk about yourself politically? Can I ask you a few questions?
A center reformist.
A centre reform.
Yes.
Okay,
nowadays there's no reformist party, but it doesn't mean there was never one.
What would you like to reform?
Well, many different things. For example,
I'll start with a little Pavlov. Give Pavlov.
Okay. Before we speak about Iran, let's speak about this. I think this is an important conversation.
Pavlov's welcome to England.
Anyway, one of the things I want to reform here in Great Britain is the media.
The media?
Yes,
okay,
because the media. Look, because the media is completely off the charts. They're just completely full on what's popular, and they can be simply bought by anyone who has enough money to pay the media to, concentrate on a specific thing that they want to concentrate on. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I want to change. The media needs to stop encouraging dysfunctional ideologies with people and needs to stop encouraging things that are destructive for society. Like, for example, socialism. Socialism is by far the most destructive ideology here in Great Britain. That's why I don't usually enter racial debates.
Just briefly interrupt to say, we in the right are very encouraged by everything you're saying.
Yeah, I know.
Please continue.
No, listen.
So you're basically you are for reforming things like political ideology in the media, which we know is cultural Marxist left, perhaps the same in the education system, so are we. But are you, let me ask you something, are you a libertarian more or authoritarian?
I'd call myself a libertarian.
So if I did the north side, you're on the liberal?
Yeah, I'd call myself a centrist.
Centrist, okay, so you're like a Sargon.
I know, not like Sargon. I don't really agree with Sargon.
I thought I'd poke you around to find out where you sit.
Yeah, not like Sargon.
You don't like the Starship's trooper model?
The Starship's trooper model?
Yeah.
You mean glamorizing fascism?
No.
Well, look. In a world where humans are at war with man-eating bugs, you kind of need a system like that to survive, You're fighting against a bunch of man-eating bugs. You're not fighting against other humans. Like, there's no tolerance with bugs, with animals that want to eat you alive. You can't be tolerant towards them.
What if we still installed?
Well, yeah, kind of.
What if we still installed a system of initiation for the population, even if we're not at war with anyone? We still have to go through initiation if we want to be a voting citizen.
You kind of lost me there. Initiation for what?
To being an adult in society that votes and has these rights,
Oh yeah, of course. That's look. It again has to do with the media, because the media is giving very bad examples to people. Like people are basically seeing rappers and artists and actors as somebody who can dictate their ideology to them. It's pathetic. You don't listen to a rapper and say, oh, he blew my mind, he's very philosophical. No. You need to listen to actually intelligent people. And the problem is that there are no idols nowadays. There are no good examples in the media. There's no example, almost no example of a person. Okay, you should do like that person is doing.
You mean the mainstream media or the alt media?
Mostly mainstream media. Go ahead.
Don't you think that it's not really the type of person, the rapper or the MP, isn't it actually what they're saying, the content of what they're saying that's important, rather than what they look like?
No, I didn't mention how they look like. I'm talking about what they're saying.
Rapper, everyone has an idea of what a rapper looks like. So when you say a rapper not being intelligent or not having being intelligent,
I also mentioned artists and actors and all of the other people. Look, I'm an actor myself, and
no, all I'm saying is that isn't it the idea that what the person's saying that's important rather than who they are?
Oh yeah,
I think.
Yes, of course. But look, this is why you don't put a boxer in your parliament. And I have to give this example, it's Ukraine, because we have a Klitschko. Exactly. Man, every time I hear Klitschko speak, I facepalm. You guys are very lucky that you don't understand Ukrainian or Russian. I assume you don't, maybe you do. But I think you don't, right? Because it gives cringe, it gives cancer if you listen to Klitschko speak. The guy can't put two words together. He's literally, no joke right now, the stupidest speaker I've ever seen in my life, the worst speaker I've seen in my life. No joke right now. He's worse than any speaker that you can give me an example of. Because he's just so stupid in when public speaking.
So I've just come in here. What are you preaching or what are you espousing?
I'm preaching that you shouldn't listen to people who don't know anything about politics. You shouldn't listen to them. Like we get all these actors saying, preaching this ideology, preaching that ideology.
The Australian bushfires.
Dude, those bushfires happen because of the. Exactly, because of those guys. Because they prohibited the Australians from burning the bushes periodically, from burning the trash around, and thus a big fire broke out. They prohibited them because it releases carbon. Like, come on, man. Those Greenpeaces, those Extinction Rebellion idiots, those cultists, they're fucking up the environment more than they're helping it at this point. It's a cult, it's horrible. You're following the ideology of a, 14, 16-year-old child with autism? Are you joking right now?
So are you trying to set up your own political party? Or?
Oh no, not yet at least, not yet at least. Not yet. I might look.
You might join the alternative, patriotic alternative.
No, I'm not going to join anyone.
If, your own political party, or are you spreading your ideas? Are you trying to start your own political party by just spreading your ideas?
Maybe not political party. If I'm going to start something, it will be more like an ideological group, like an ideology or something like that. You know what I mean? If I am going to start something, it would be something like that. And the main point would be to make people be able to judge better, to not make stupid mistakes. Because I've seen things.
Judge better.
Yeah, judge better what's around them. Make a better judgment of the things around them. Because if people see an actor speaking on TV and defending a specific political ideology, and they think that he can be trusted, then there's a serious problem with the mentality of those people who trust him. Because I know as an actor that actors will say whatever is popular and whatever gets them a paycheck. That's what actors are, unfortunately. No helping it.
How could you ever, as just one person? I know one person can be significant, but how would you possibly do that?
How would I do that? Gradually. Gradually.
That's a massive culture.
Yeah, I know. No, but look.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't aim for it, but it's massive.
There's many people who agree with the things I say here. Not always on camera, because sometimes there's groups here in Speaker's Corner that intimidate openly people who might agree with something that they don't like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But there's actually many people who agree with the things I'm saying. There's many people who told me that I should maybe start a YouTube channel or something like that of my own.
Yeah.
I haven't been really attracted to that idea lately, but previously, but lately I've been thinking about it a bit later. Maybe I will do something like that. Maybe I will do something of sorts, because it seems to me like there's a lot of madness going on nowadays, and there's a lot of stupid decisions that people make, and it can all be fixed relatively easily by just a small ideological change. But people
easily.
No, look, not everything, obviously not everything, but many of the things, many of the problems we have, at least in Western society, can be fixed relatively easily, without a lot of bloodshed. There are some countries, like for example Ukraine, my country, where it's very difficult to implement change because the corruption, the mafia, the mobsters, the oligarchs are so entrenched in the political system, it's almost impossible, it's literally impossible to get them out of there without any violence. Here in the West, there's still a small window to kind of solve everything without a lot of bloodshed, I think. I think it's still possible. That's why,
So you come here every Sunday and espouse?
Yeah, every Sunday I come here. I come here to speak to school.
That's...
Are you responsible? Well, I don't know about that. Are you responsible for your actions or the actions of the UK, for example?
I'm responsible for my own actions.
Right, and that's what matters, man.
Okay, but look, I think it's useful to speak out to the people because I hear a lot of fallacies being spread and a lot of lies being spread on the media and trying to defend this Qasem Soleimani guy because supposedly he's a victim. He's not a victim. He's definitely not a victim. What he's been doing and what Iran is doing now is unforgivable. Again, the US is not shooting international planes. The US isn't shouting death to Iran.
The Iranian plane in 1988.
The Iranian plane, the
Yeah.
commercial plane.
Yeah.
A commercial plane.
Yeah, they shot a commercial plane in 1988.
And why
I think
did
it's
they do that?
1988. Well, there was American boats were in the region. I think the same way as Iran did it. They must have mistaken it for. They said they mistook it for an Iranian M14 Tomcat. The difference is the U.S. commander in charge of that ship actually received a medal afterwards.
Yeah, he denied it for like 20 years before
So the U.S. did it. I think it was 1988.
1988.
Yeah, it was really
Iranian plane,
famous.
especially.
Yeah. Specifically Iranian plane. It's a famous case. Very famous case.
Look, guys.
Yeah.
I said it and I say it again. I'm not saying the US are the good guys, but in this current situation,
But what
I'm
are the
definitely
US
not on
doing in the
Iran's
region?
side.
What are the US doing in the region? Iran is bad, I would say that, but Saudi Arabia is bad. If you're going to kill Soleimani because he's bad, okay, but you have to kill the leaders of Saudi Arabia as well. You have to kill the leaders in South American countries which kill their own people that the US supports.
look, they won't kill the Saudi Arabian leaders because, as far as I've heard from Saudis who
Yeah.
have sometimes come here, Saudi Arabia is closely tied to America,
It
so
is.
they won't kill the leaders of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but
I don't think they
that
will.
just goes to show that they don't give a shit if Soleimani's
Of course
bad
they don't
or not.
give. Look,
Yeah, they don't give a
they
shit.
don't give a shit. I know that.
And they
I
shouldn't
know
be
the
over
Americans are not good guys for everyone. They're good guys for themselves. But that's the problem. Iran is not the good guys for themselves. The Iranian
There's no such
government.
thing as good guys.
Okay, there's no such thing
I
as
agree. You
absolute
said
good guys.
you could say there are better sides, like in World War II. You could say the Allies were the better side. So there are better sides. But what's America doing in the region? You know what I mean? What are American troops doing in bases encircling around Iran?
That's right.
What are they?
Yeah, it
what
doesn't
business
make
have they got
sense.
there? How about Iran build a base in Cuba? You know I'm not saying Iran. Well, exactly. Iran aren't the good guys. I totally agree. And Soleimani wasn't a good guy. But you have to also understand that he was being supported by the US post 2014 to help fight ISIS.
That's
He was
right.
basically the only reason that Iraq was able to defeat ISIS because the Iraqi military ran away. There weren't enough US troops on the ground to react to ISIS.
Yeah, they worked together.
So the Soleimanis and the Quds Force and the Iranian-backed militias were the reason ISIS was destroyed eventually in Iraq.
Okay, so wait. Let me give my solution to the current problem, and
Yes.
you'll give your solution.
Sure.
And let's compare the solutions.
Sure.
My solution is to change governments in Iran, make a different government, help the people make a revolution in Iran because they're being shot at protests that are doing against the
Had a
government.
revolution.
Sorry?
They had a revolution.
They had a revolution.
Okay,
That's
okay.
how
How
the
many
current
times has it
government
worked?
came into.
How many times has that worked when we've helped them? What about when we helped them have a revolution? What was it, in 1953?
Well, the Ukrainian revolution actually was pretty helpful.
The which one?
The Ukrainian revolution.
Okay, but that depends who you ask. You could say there are people who could say that they don't want a revolution, they just want all sanctions to stop. There's no reason for the
Which
US
sanctions to stop?
sanctions from the US on Iran, which are constantly
No, we're
being
talking about
announced.
Ukraine now.
No, we're talking about Iran. You're bringing up Ukraine. That's totally
Yeah, I'm giving you
separate.
an example of a revolution that was beneficial for a country.
Yes, but that's something that we could then go on debate. We could debate that now.
Okay, let's debate it now.
No, but we were talking about Iran. Let's
No,
finish
but
Iran
wait.
and then go on to Ukraine.
You want examples of revolutions that work well. Of
Right.
course, a revolution can work to shit, like the Red Revolution.
Okay.
You know, when the Soviets took charge in Russia, in the Tsarist Russia.
French
One of the worst. You know, the French Revolution is a bit more debatable. It's a bit more debatable.
You cannot mix both cultures.
The point is-
Sorry?
You cannot mix both cultures. Iran culture
Why not?
and Arabic
No,
culture
but you
is
need-
not the same. Than
We're
You
talking
need to
about
understand-
revolutions,
no,
not
but
about
the US,
cultures.
the US has no business.
It's about the culture.
We have no business influencing Iran's country internal politics because we want them to have a revolution.
Oh, you have no business.
Yes, it's none
When
of
they're
our
shooting
business.
international planes, it becomes your business.
Okay, well
How
then.
about that?
Well, America shot down an Iranian international plane. You
Listen,
didn't even
if
know
America
about that.
shot an international
They
plane, America
apologized.
should be taken responsible for it.
Yes, but it didn't get
No,
taken
they
responsible.
apologised. They paid $100 million compensation to the families.
There you go.
What, in the 1988 crash?
Yeah.
The 1988.
President Ronald Reagan apologised.
The
He paid
person
$100
in
million.
charge of that ship
Do you know how
received a
long
medal.
later they apologised? Hang on. The ship was talking to the plane. The plane was not replying back.
Okay.
It wasn't, so it was getting
So that's-
closer and closer.
No, hang on a sec.
If it launched, yeah, but hang on. A little while after that, what
Don't
happened?
try and justify it.
No, hang on. What happened a little while after that?
I don't know.
Two Iraqi jets shot missiles at an American ship, which didn't fire back this time.
Okay.
And they got launched, and that captain got court-martialed.
But that's a military issue.
No, but it was an accident.
Okay, but this was an accident too. I mean, it's not like Iran did this on purpose. I'm not defending.
And they
what
tried to
did.
cover it up in
No,
the
I'm
beginning.
saying I think it was an accident.
We don't know
yes.
if they tried to
We
cover
don't
it
know.
up.
Are you joking?
Yeah, we don't
You don't
know
know. Yes, we do know.
How do we know that?
Yes, we do. Iran was specifically saying that it was a malfunction in a plane until
Right.
videos came out of
Okay.
the missile hitting the plane,
But
and then they
eventually
admitted.
So.
Oh,
then-
thank you. Eventually
yeah,
admitted. When there was no way of hiding it.
Why they could have carried on denying it? They
The
could have done what
Americans
America does.
admitted their mistakes straight away.
Dude, Iran has things to lose. In eastern Ukraine, people don't have anything to lose, so they didn't.
So what
they
are we
just kept
debating? You
denying.
want to debate Ukraine or you
Okay,
want to
listen,
debate Iran?
I'm comparing the two situations because it's very similar. How the rebels in eastern Ukraine shot the plane of Malaysia Airlines
Right.
and how the Iranians shot the plane over Iran, which, by the way, most of the passengers were Iranian, so they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't mean to do it.
Of course, they didn't mean to
Yeah.
do it. The Ukrainian rebels didn't mean to shoot the Malaysian Airlines plane,
Yeah,
but
but
they
the
did.
rebels did.
Whoever
Because-
shot down the MH17
Panic.
plane didn't mean
No,
to do
nobody
it.
took
They
responsibility for the Ukraine.
Yeah,
of course
Iran
not,
panicked.
because
of
they're not
course.
accountable.
No denying
The
that.
Ukrainians
just
shot
keep
it
denying
down.
it.
The war was just
Still,
still
Russia
running.
still doesn't
Yes.
accept the Ukrainian
But
Holodomor
they
Give them
techniques.
some credit for taking the blame, like accepting the responsibility versus the Ukrainians, right?
Yeah, okay, but again, the situation is slightly different because there's specific videos of a missile hitting the plane, and it's very clear what actually
But you
happened.
said there was some evidence on social media. that
There was, but they deleted it immediately, and it's not as clear as the video showing what actually happened. You know what I mean? So the situation, that's the only difference in the situation, and also that if you're a country, an actual country, you kind of have to admit
United
sometimes
States
when
is not
something
in Africa,
terrible is done by
Chinese
you.
are.
Now the Eastern
The United
Ukrainians
States is in Africa.
are a
Have you
terrorist
heard of
state.
AFRICOM?
They don't have to
China
admit
is
to
in
anything.
North
They don't have
Yeah,
to.
but China's
have-
not there militarily.
They don't
They
care
build
about
railroads
international
and they
relations.
influence them
So they
totally.
can just keep
They're not
denying it. They're a
Sorry?
Russian
They're
puppet.
not
You know
doing
what I
it for
mean?
nothing.
That's not
So they
illegal.
just kept
No,
denying
but they're
it.
doing it for their own purposes.
That's fine.
Yeah,
But anyway, we're
eventually
talking
they're
about
gonna pay back.
So
Iran
we're
and
talking
about
about Iran.
revolution.
Okay.
And about the solution I would give to the situation.
Okay.
Obviously, I would prefer a non-violent solution to the problem. But the problem is, the Iranian government is a jihadi government, is an openly religious zealot government.
Right.
They're not going to make any concessions. They're not going to let their
How
people
do you know
vote
they're
for
not
what they
going
want.
to? How do you know they're not going to?
Because they've been shooting the protesters.
Okay, but
all
how
the
do we know?
thousands
How do we?
died.
No, but there are loads of governments around the world that shoot their
Every
protesters.
government.
Are the Americans shooting their protesters?
Well, you can see what Americans do to their own protesters.
Nah, bro,
Look at what the
you
French
lost me
police
there.
are doing to the yellow vest protesters.
Are they shooting them en masse by
They're
the
shooting
thousands?
them with rubber bullets, and the people are losing their eyes. Yeah.
Well, they've actually won their protest.
Americans are
haven't
not
they?
shooting
It's given up.
the
Bro,
armed
Macron's,
protesters. They're shooting-
Bro, you can't compare shooting a few
Americans,
rubber. It's
Americans
bad.
are
I
in
don't
an
agree with
advanced
it.
stage of controlling their population. They're way
Yeah, I
ahead of
think you
Iran.
can say that.
Way
Oh,
ahead.
yes, they are.
Look at.
Yes, they are.
Why don't
No
you go
kidding.
over there to Belmarsh, talk to Julian Assange, see how America's treating him? Why don't you talk to Chelsea Manning, see how America's treating
It
them?
simply doesn't compare. Wait.
What do you mean it simply
It
doesn't
simply
compare?
doesn't
National
compare. You're
security.
comparing keeping a man in custody and shooting thousands of people. You don't compare
No,
the
no,
two
no, no.
things.
I'm saying that America doesn't need to shoot thousands of its people because the people are in a state of being totally distracted from what's going on in the world.
Oh,
Most
and in Iran
Americans-
they know what's going on in the world. They're all enlightened.
Well,
I think the US.
I'm not saying they're all necessarily enlightened, but it's
The
clear.
devil is in the details. The
Right.
devil here is in the
Yes.
government,
Right.
not in the people. The Iranian people obviously don't want to be ruled by their government, by their religious zealot government, but the government doesn't care and it has weapons, so they
Okay.
can make their people do whatever they want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
In America, they're not gonna do that because they're a
Right.
more civilized country than that. Because they're not gonna just randomly shoot thousands of their own people.
Right, but that's because America's the biggest dog on the planet. It doesn't have
Biggest what?
the biggest country. It's like the big dog on the
Ah,
big
the
dog
top
on
dog,
the
okay.
top
The
dog,
empire, it's the
right?
biggest
It's the
empire.
biggest empire. The US doesn't have an
It's
outside.
nothing to do with their own
no,
people.
No, no, no.
Their
Hang on a
people
sec.
are harmed.
Hang on a
They
sec.
have weapons
But why
to
is
fight.
America putting sanctions on Iran?
Because of what Iran did.
What did Iran do?
Yeah, what did
Okay, first of all, they surrounded the embassy. Secondly of all, they
No.
launched missiles.
Sanctions were way before.
Okay, way
Sanctions
before.
were way
Do
before.
you know there's been sanctions on Iran for more than 30, 40 years since the revolution?
Yeah, sure,
Why?
but now they're getting worse. Now
Yes,
they're getting
but why?
more and
Why
more
are they there?
sanctions.
Why are those sanctions there?
Why
Why doesn't
America
America
Iran?
just leave Iran alone?
Because it started
Get
with
rid
a
of
bomb.
sanctions
They
and
don't
get
want
rid
them
of
to
its
develop a
troops.
nuclear bomb. They don't want them to
Sorry?
they don't want them to develop a nuclear bomb.
Okay.
No, Obama was.
How can you believe that after the
Wait,
2003
guys.
thing with Iraq?
He has a point. He has a point. Obama was discussing giving nuclear weapons to Iran.
We've seen that happens every time. We've seen the
I
facilities
know,
in Iran.
I know.
What facilities have they got? They've got facilities.
The enrichment facilities.
At the
They've seen
height
them.
of their
They're
nuclear
showing them.
program, Iran had enough nuclear material to make one nuclear bomb.
Guys, the sanctions happened because
sanctions
Iran
go
didn't want to play
way
along
back
in the local
before
politics.
nuclear
Because Iran didn't want to cooperate.
So
But
if
the
you don't
Americans,
cooperate with
bro,
me, I'll
wait,
play
wait,
sanctions
let's
on
say
you.
the
Very
Americans
nice, very
were
free.
discussing giving nuclear weapons to Iran during Obama. There were discussions about it. There
sanctions go
were
way
plans
How
about
ignorant
it. I
can you be?
know,
How
I
ignorant?
know they go
It
back.
basically goes to the point that the new
Hang on.
revolution,
Iran
the
Iran
Islamic
has got a nuclear power station.
revolution was
Okay,
not
the
really
Russians.
friendly with
What's wrong with having a
Hang on,
because
wait a
they
minute.
believed
Let me finish.
the
Okay,
US
sorry,
had
yeah.
installed
jumping.
the
You're
Shah
American.
as the
I'm
government,
actually Russian.
as a puppet.
Same, typical
So when
American.
they
Give me a
discovered
break.
Shah,
The
they became
Russians
enemies
are
of
the
the
ones
US.
that
They took over
process
the embassy
spent rods.
in Iran and they
Right.
basically
They take
started
them,
cutting their
take them to
relationship
Russia,
Yeah.
with the US.
and do what they're going to do to them.
The
Yeah.
relationship died.
Now,
They didn't.
When them
do any
spent rods
business
are finished,
and they
that's
imposed
what you got.
sanctions
That
on them
is
across the industry.
weapons grade plutonium.
What do you mean,
It's
so what?
sanctions. If the Iranians to say to the Russians that handle the
You have a
boys,
country on the
we're
planet
having
that
those.
can decide.
We're taking
That's
them.
the
I'm
beginning.
not
Which
sure if
country should
I'm
do
not
We're
sure if
taking
that's
them.
how they make weapons grade
So they say,
plutonium.
I'm not going to
spent
do
rods,
business
the
with you because I
plutonium
don't
is
like you.
I'm not
And
sure.
then
The Russians
I'm
are
not sure about
processing.
that.
UK,
They take them back to
France,
Russia.
all these other
Okay.
puppet
They
states
put
that
fresh rods in
Japan,
Right.
South
All the
Korea,
Iranians
Germany,
got to do
well, not
to
separate,
make bombs
more extension
is
of
say
the
to the
US.
Russians,
You do
"Look,
know about
boys,
the
see
moves
those
that Iran
rods?
has been
We're keeping
doing
them.
about creating
got the material to make
a
bombs.
caliphate in that
Iran
region,
could.
about spreading
Could
their
they?
influence to the other
Okay,
Okay,
countries
but those
around.
South
But
Korea
that's
could
don't have to
when you
enrich.
That's the main reason
when you
why the
isolate,
sanctions
when you
happen.
isolate
Nuclear
a
bombs
nation and
further
they
than
become
that.
radical because they can't really fight with you economically,
They
you only
make
just
an
let that
explosive
flourish.
bomb.
Okay.
Because all they have
Them
is to
having
resort
the
to some form
ability.
of
That's what the
ideology.
delivery system.
Because
Right.
they don't
They're gonna
have
do
weapons to
is
fight.
take it,
They're going to resort to
deliver
some
it on
form
the
of
truck,
religious
Right.
fanaticism or whatever to just defend
Okay, they
themselves.
could do that, but that's irrelevant.
And they're
That's
going
what
to
they're
fight
gonna
you
do.
But the
back
point is that
by
Look,
spreading their
if you're trying
ideology.
if you're trying to get me to defend the US and say that the US are the good guys in the whole
I'm not
situation,
saying that,
you
no.
can stop it right now
No,
because that's not
of
what
course
I'm
not.
doing.
I know that.
What I'm
But you're implying that the sanctions are because of some nuclear intentions. When the
No,
fact
man.
is,
I'm telling
have to
you.
look at
I'm
the
telling you.
history.
Even though they had the sanctions, they still
My
had
friend,
relations with Iran. They were discussing giving them nuclear weapons, not giving selling. Obviously.
Iran had a democratic vote to vote in Mossadegh as the prime minister. The US made a coup to get rid of Mossadegh because he wanted to nationalize Iranian oil in 1954. Then they put back the Shah, and so the whole revolution was to dispose the US installed
Yeah, but
Shah.
how does that contradict anything of what I'm saying?
it just goes to show that the US was messing in Iran.
Well, of course it was messing in Iran. It's
Yes,
messing
that's
everywhere.
why there's a
about the
problem.
origins of the
the
sanctions.
privilege.
Listen, it's very simple.
That's the
It's very
privilege of a
simple.
superpower.
We know how the US operates. If you play ball with the US, you don't have a problem. If you don't play ball with the US, you start having a serious problem. Look at what's happening in Iraq right now. The Iraqi parliament has just voted to get US troops out. What has America said?
No.
I thought America's brought them democracy and freedom.
No.
America has said, if you do that, we'll freeze your assets which are being held in New York. That's how America behaves. And so to think that America has a problem with Iran because Iran's doing... America doesn't give a shit if Iran's bad. America
course it
give a
doesn't.
shit. Yeah, the reason America's there is to protect its own
Of
global
course.
interests.
Nobody's
Right.
saying the
so
opposite.
if America got out of the Middle East, okay, stopped interfering with Iran with sanctions or whatever, just
Russians
left
would
them
take
alone...
over.
Oh, left them alone now.
Iran would
Just
be
left them
doing-
alone now. Are you
Russia's
joking?
already influencing.
Russia has the economy of Italy. Russia doesn't have enough power.
If they didn't
they
have
would
enough
influence-
oil, if they didn't
Syria,
have oil, if they
Iran,
didn't have gas,
Russia,
if they didn't
Turkey,
have
all allies
all of their
together now.
resources.
Sorry?
Russia, Turkey, Iran.
No, they're not. They're not allies.
Yes, they
No, they're not allies.
They're
No,
doing
they're not allies.
China's doing military exercises.
Turkey shot down a Russian plane a few years ago.
Yeah, and
Russia
you went
and
across the
Turkey
border begging
aren't,
forgiveness.
aren't allies yet. They're not full-on allies.
And what
to
happened
where-
when he shot down the plane? He went across to Russia and got on his knees and begged for
Yeah,
forgiveness.
but I'm not. The point is that
Because Russia would have
if-
shot down a
I can-
Turkish passenger plane.
Dude,
That's what I was
how could you
expecting.
be allies when you have American military bases in your country.
Putin is using them now.
Dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Putin is using
dude, they're American
I don't
nukes.
think they're
They're
allies.
American
I
nukes.
think they might have some interest in common, but I don't think they're direct allies.
Okay.
But anyway, look.
Yeah.
We're talking about
No, he's
Again,
using them. Putin is using them now.
You guys are.
well, of course he's using.
You guys
Look,
are
guys,
turning
if
Turkey
the
against
US
and
is not in
NATO.
charge, somebody else will be in charge. The question is
It's
who will
Turkey.
be
I
in
give
charge
you Syria
and what
and
you have to
Iran
gain
with
from
Russia.
somebody being in charge.
Educate.
In Iran,
I'll have to educate myself.
Nowadays, Iran will be better off if the US completely
That's like saying
goes.
Qatar.
Erdogan
You
is
must be
paying
joking.
That's like
Now
saying
that
Qatar.
after Iran
That's
kills
like
their own
saying Qatar is
people, after Iran shoots international planes, after Iran does
Erdogan
all
is
these
saying that
things.
shooting international planes, we've
No,
already
no,
gone
no,
over
it's in
that.
Iran
Oh, we
today.
haven't gone
Yes,
over
we've
that.
gone over
We
it.
haven't gone
The
over
US
it.
did the same thing.
Oh, did the same thing. Did that excuse what Iran did?
No, but it means that it doesn't make it unique that Iran does particular things. Iran shut down. By the way,
you're making a
in
fallacy right now by
2002
thinking that
Right.
I am defending the US and saying the US are the good guys. I'm not.
I know you're
I'm
not
saying
saying that.
Iran is a worse side in the situation because of what they are and because of what they stand for, because of what they do to their own people.
So you're saying that if America intervened in Iran, then things would get better?
No, I'm saying people need to first of all stop saying that the person who died, Qasem Soleimani, is a victim. He's not a victim.
I never
No,
said he's
you
a victim.
proposed a revolution. You proposed a revolution.
You said that we
Another
should be
revolution.
supporting Iran
Exactly, so that's
in
the-
overthrowing their government. You said that earlier, right? So
I think there should be support to change the government in Iran, yes.
Okay, so when has that worked well?
In
When
Ukraine.
the US
Never worked well.
It hasn't worked well in Ukraine. There's
Yes,
a
it
war in
has.
Ukraine.
Yes, there is a war in Ukraine.
Yes, so it hasn't worked well, has it?
Bro, okay, look. If you don't know what happened
Look
in
at Libya.
Ukraine,
Man,
don't speak about
Ukraine
it.
I know exactly what happened to you. You and I
Do
will
you
debate
do
it
you
before.
know? Do you know?
Listen, we'll
I'm
finish
not sure
Iran,
you
we'll
know.
go straight to Ukraine.
No, wait.
I'll debate
wait.
Ukraine all day long.
Okay, let's talk about Ukraine.
Yes,
Okay, let's talk
let's
about
talk
Ukraine.
about
Let's talk
Ukraine.
about Ukraine. What happened in Ukraine is
Yes.
Russia has its tendrils in Ukraine, and when Ukraine decided to side with the West, Russia was, I can't let that happen. I need to invade Crimea to get my fleet, and I need to invade eastern Ukraine to get as much power as possible from the Ukrainians
you
who
saying
don't
Russia
want to
invaded
stay with
eastern
Russia.
Ukraine? Russia invaded
Because they
Crimea
invaded
only.
eastern Ukraine.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
Give me evidence of that.
Yes, they did, bro. They have the
Oh,
weapons.
bro, they have the
They have the
weapons. Give me
weapons.
evidence.
They have the artillery.
Russia invaded eastern
There has
Ukraine.
been,
Agreed.
bro.
Sorry,
I don't know
Crimea,
if you've
agreed.
seen this. I don't know if you've seen this.
I've seen a
but
lot
there's a
of Ukraine.
video of the Ukrainian previous president, of the ex-president, of Poroshenko, having a whole handful of Russian passports, which were the passports of captured Russian soldiers in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine.
Proof.
Of high-ranking officers
Have you seen the
in
video?
eastern
You've
Ukraine.
seen the video of that Kuwaiti girl saying that the Iraqi soldiers are taking the babies out of the incubators. Come on, dude.
It doesn't matter what
You
somebody
know what?
says.
How
He
about
has
this?
physical
How about
proof.
this? I'll come
he has
next
actual
week
proof, bro.
with a bunch
There's
of
videos of
Ukrainian
Russian
bastards.
trucks entering Ukraine.
How much you selling for?
What do you
There's
mean?
videos of fucking artillery entering eastern Ukraine. Do you think the eastern Ukrainians got their weapons in supermarket?
Dude, there's all
You
kinds
must
of
be
videos.
joking, man.
There's all
you
kinds
must
of
be
videos that you
joking.
can show.
Yeah,
If
sure.
Russia invaded
Russian-made
Ukraine-
weapons. Russian-made weapons. Where else can they
if
come
Russia
from?
wanted to invade Ukraine, Russia would be in
You
Kiev
must be joking.
within 4 or 5 days.
If the US wanted to destroy Iran, Iran wouldn't exist anymore.
Of course.
There's consequences. There's consequences to Russia invading Ukraine.
What's your point? You're saying like we should intervene in other countries to help them get democratic processes and freedoms, etc.
Well, the first step is to understand
That's
what
basically
traders
what I'm
like Jeremy Corbyn and Ilhan Omar are up to. They're up to destroying their own countries. They're up to destabilizing their own countries. The
But
US
foreign
and the UK.
intervention is not the solution.
That's the
We
first
saw
step.
it in Iraq, we saw it in other countries, in Syria, in Libya now. It's not the solution.
It's always been like that.
It's always a mess.
always
It's
been like
always,
that.
you come in, you create chaos, you kill the people.
No, listen, okay.
It's not the
In
solution.
Syria,
It's been like that from the history of the
it's
world.
the fault of the US of what happened to Syria.
Yes, it is the fault of the US.
Well, the next
Yeah, I'm not
It is the
representing
fault
the
of the US
US.
what happened
It's
in Syria.
absolutely the fault of the US of what happened in Syria.
It's the fault of everyone. Everyone with power. It's the fault of Europe, the UK,
It's
Russia,
mostly
China,
the US.
etc.
The US did what
It's a
happened in
proxy
Syria.
war. Everyone with
The
interest
UK
in
has
oil,
got
etc.
power
intervening.
for the US. Ukraine, by the way, was stable
UK
before the
hasn't got
US.
power to do it.
There are videos of Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah.
happened to
Joe
Ukrainian
Biden,
energy?
listen,
I wanna
Joe
know.
Biden brags.
Nothing.
He
They
brags
were not.
about how he
can't
had
even defend
influence
themselves.
over
The UK is part of
He
NATO.
brags about it.
but they
And by the way,
haven't
you want to
got
talk
themselves,
about
they
videos
haven't
you've
got
seen?
firepower
There's videos
to
of
go and
US mercenaries in Ukraine. Pavlov.
This is the perfect example of a Russian apologist.
What do you mean a Russian apologist?
You're defending Russia in the situation.
What's wrong with defending Russia? That's my
Everything
opinion.
is wrong with defending
Why?
Russia because
Why?
Russia invaded Ukraine with their military.
Russia only
openly.
No, Russia brought troops into Crimea openly.
Which is Ukraine.
Okay, but no, because Crimea
Yes.
first seceded.
No.
Crimea,
Don't bring me that bullshit.
What do you mean?
Crimea
Why is
was
that?
part of Ukraine.
Yes,
It was officially recognized by Russia as part of Ukraine. Oh, there you go. There you go. Go ahead. Show me the apology.
Yes. So the person who was in charge of Crimea asked.
It was a region of Ukraine.
Right.
Russia invaded a region of an autonomous country, of a free country, of a different country.
Okay,
What
that's
do you have
only
to say
happened
about
after
that?
the US installed.
Oh, it only happened. Okay.
Yes.
So you're giving it. Oh,
It only started. The violence started because the US started it off.
Started by what? What did the US do?
They overthrew the Ukrainian government.
They overthrew.
Yes.
The Ukrainian people didn't want to make part of Russia, man.
What does that mean?
No.
What does that mean, the Ukrainian people?
What does it mean? It means that Yanukovych promised the Ukrainian people that he would make part of the EU, that he would side with the European Union, but instead he changed his mind because he was bribed by Putin, because he's Putin's bitch.
Every single person. Okay, but now Zelensky and Poroshenko, they're America's bitch.
Oh, America's bitch. They're the bitches of other oligarchs.
Pavlov, who's been
Poroshenko was America's bitch. Joe Biden bragged
What?
about
Who's
it.
been privatizing Ukraine's energy resources?
Okay, you tell me. Come on.
Tell me, you tell
No,
me.
you tell me. You seem to be very happy about it. Come on. Come here. You tell me. I know who it was, but I want to see where you take this argument. Go ahead.
US, in fact, one or two US senators even. Did you know that?
No
They're basically
shit,
robbing
man.
your nation, man.
No shit they are.
Right.
Because nobody cares about Ukraine. The thing is, Ukraine is better off siding with the West than with Russia.
Then hopefully we would achieve something
Man,
better.
you
So
must
nothing
be
changed.
stupid
So
or
nothing
something.
changed. Previously,
It's
you
got
had
a big disaster, huge disaster.
It's a big difference. Guys, let's get something straight.
disaster.
Nobody cares about international relations. US won't help anyone out of poverty. They don't give a shit. They only give a shit about themselves. As it should be with everyone. As it should be. Everybody should care mainly about themselves. That's how it will. That's how it will always be. The people who don't understand it are deluded.
When the French had a revolution,
Yeah, and Russia cares about itself as well.
Russia cares about itself and itself only.
Yes, agreed.
Exactly.
But I never
it doesn't
said
care
that's not
about
the case.
Ukraine. It's not helping Ukraine. Crimea is in shambles.
No,
Crimea
but-
has completely ruined the economy. And Russian troops are marching
that's-
left and right.
Okay. What? Hang on a sec. In the same way as
One at a time.
in the same way as America protects its own interest, Russia was protecting its own interest, right? So what was America doing?
So why is
right in
America
Russia's-
better than Russia?
All big governments are bad. If Russia, no, hang on a sec. If Russia started to interfere now in, say, where's South American country that's supported by the US, Colombia, for example. If Russia started to interfere in Colombia, use Russian resources in Colombia, Russia would be bad in that situation. In the same way as if the US was fighting a drug cartel, which I know isn't the case, that's not exactly how it happens. The US was fighting a drug cartel in Mexico, that would actually be quite justified.
They might need to do that. Mexico is losing battles against the cartels.
Okay, so that would actually be quite justified. But in the Ukrainian situation, in the Iranian situation, in the Iraq situation, in the Libya situation, in the list of countries that you could list that America's been fucking over for years, America's in the wrong, and that's all I'm saying.
In the wrong. So
Yes.
who's in the right?
Or America shouldn't be doing
Who's
that.
in the right?
No, I'll rephrase that. I shouldn't say they're in the wrong, but
who's in the
they
right?
have no business doing that. In the same way as at the start of this conversation, you said there's a worse side and a better side. America's the worst side in those situations.
Okay, who's the better side?
The better side is give me of which example?
No.
Libya?
You want to go this way.
No,
you want to
no. Yes,
bro.
so which?
You see, he's pulling out already.
No, I'm not
You're
pulling out. Which
already.
example? I said
No.
Iraq.
Iraq. Who's the better side?
Well, Iraq was minding its own business. So Iraq is
The
unfortunately...
jihadi government is the better side in Iraq.
The Saddam Hussein
the
jihadi government.
the current jihadi government.
No, hang on a second. Hang on a
The,
second.
Ir-
I was
the
talking about
Iranian,
2003.
not Iraq. No, right. Are
That's
you
what I
saying
said,
Iraq or Iran? Are you saying Iraq?
I said
or
Iraq.
Iraq. Okay, Iraq. It's
Yeah,
different. Still.
Iraq.
My bad.
Then
I heard
Libya.
Iran. I
Look,
heard Iran.
now look at what happened in Libya as well. Do I think Gaddafi was good? No.
The
but
guy who wanted to give weapons to the Nation of Islam in the US. Are you joking? He's the good guy.
Pavlov,
No, I didn't say he's the good guy. I said unfortunately in that situation.
Oh, he's the lesser evil.
He's the lesser evil.
Okay.
Same with Syria.
Afghanistan. Who put the Taliban in Afghanistan?
Hang on, didn't Gaddafi
Who
come from the
destroyed
coast?
Afghanistan?
He became French.
The US and the Soviet Union.
And the British.
I don't know. I'm not
Well,
Convention is
British are a
always
bit
great,
less
isn't it? Okay,
into
Libya.
Afghanistan.
Why
It was
not?
not, look, it was the struggle between the interests of two superpowers
Okay, but
that
I'm
destroyed
just-
Afghanistan. How about that?
Because you're not,
I'm just a cold
you're not criticising your country.
Nah, I'm just a
You're
cold
criticising America for doing yourself.
What I'm telling you, guys, I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is, you don't know what a totalitarian government is. None of you do. None of you. Totalitarian.
Of course I do.
Oh, you do? Doesn't seem that way. You wouldn't defend Russia. This guy wouldn't defend Russia if he knew what a totalitarian government is.
I don't think anyone here is defending Russia.
Oh, I think there are. I think there are people who are defending
No,
Russia.
hang on a second. You're saying Russia is a
and you think
totalitarian
it's
government?
Russia.
Okay, when's the last time you were in Russia? Let me
You
ask you a
must be
question.
joking, man.
I was in Russia
You must
last
be joking.
summer.
Look, I can know things
I
about
spoke to
Russia
an
that a
anti-Putin
Russian person
protester.
who lived in Russia all their life might not know. It's the same. Look, it's the same argument as feminists use. Oh, you're not a woman. You don't know
Yeah, but give me an
how a
example.
woman
Give me
feels.
an example.
You can be a gynecologist and know a lot more about women than a woman
listen.
knows about
How
herself.
about I'll say this? Russia's a totalitarian country.
What? A gynecologist?
Gynecologist and
Wait,
more
knowing
about
a lot
women
more
than
about the
women.
morphology of a woman than a woman.
No, but hang on a
Well,
second,
obviously,
hang on a
that's what I'm talking about, man. About how Russia
Russia is
functions.
a totalitarian country in the same way as any major government in France, in the UK, in the US are totalitarian. In that sense, yes. The only time I get annoyed is if people say Russia's totalitarian, implying that the US is super free or France is really free.
Nobody implied that.
Okay, that's fine then. Then in that sense, Russia is a
We can throw our
totalitarian.
government
Like
out.
any big government.
But it's
creates
more.
problems.
I will say that Russia is much more totalitarian than France or the US or Britain
In what
or
way?
Germany.
In what way?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom
First
of
all.
speech. Okay. Where is the freedom of speech of the people in Paris who are losing their... Just look at the videos of old ladies being beaten up by the police in Paris. Freedom of speech, dude. Go to Russia and you will see protesters, anti-Putin protesters. I spoke to one last time I was in Russia. There was no problems
Getting
at
beaten
all.
up.
He wasn't getting beaten
No.
up. Why would you say that?
Have you seen what happened to Pussy Riot?
Okay, have you seen what happened to the people in Paris? That's my point. We agree.
This is
All-
the what about this?
No. My whole argument is saying you can say Russia's totalitarian, like any major government is very totalitarian. Unfortunately, do I think Putin is a good guy? No. What I get annoyed at.
Oh, I beg to differ. I think you think.
No, I don't think he's a good guy. No, I'm not. Okay, you could say that. My statement.
You wouldn't be defending Russia on invading Ukraine
No,
if you
no.
didn't think Putin
What,
was a good
what
guy.
annoys me is when people say the US is free, not totalitarian.
More free than Russia, for
More
sure.
free. Yeah, but it's not. You can't give me an... Actually, the US is only more free because it has gun rights. If the US got rid of gun rights...
That's part of the reason, but that's not the only reason. That's
Okay,
much
but
more
not France, not the UK. Russia,
France,
listen. Russia
I don't
has
think you
political
know
prisoners.
how much you can say in France and in the UK
I
and in
don't
any
think
country
you know how much you can
about
say
those
in Russia.
countries.
I don't think you know how much you can say in Russia.
Oh, I know what you can say and
You've
what you
never even
cannot
been
say.
to Russia.
I haven't been. Many of my family members work in Russia and they've been living to hell to not show that they're Ukrainians, to not show any of their own ideology. They can't say shit there.
I've seen people with Ukrainian flags on Nevsky Prospect. What do you want about? What do you mean?
Have you
I'm
seen
just
them
lying.
getting beaten up? Have you seen people
Okay,
getting plutonium in their breakfast?
But my
in
point was...
Have you seen people getting poisoned, politicians getting poisoned in the US or in the UK or in France?
Well, in the same way that I've seen US assassinate Soleimani or whoever else.
That's a
It's
foreign
exact-
policy.
all countries are bad.
What do you expect
Okay,
from it?
the Skripal guy, he was a double agent. So that's like... I mean, I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying
Skripal was showing information that the Russians didn't want him to show. That's why they killed him.
Well, firstly, I mean, just assuming, I don't believe anything the UK government says. The UK government even never said that Russia killed him. All they said is it's highly likely. So, I mean, but I don't want to get into that. I'm happy to assume that Russia killed him, that's fine. The point is, Russia is bad in the same way as the US, Paris, France.
No, Russia is worse.
But you can't give me a single example. Give me one.
Okay, for example, the situation in Ukraine.
Okay.
Russia has been sending weapons and soldiers and all that stuff to eastern Ukraine, promoting the terrorists in eastern Ukraine, and waging a war in the gates of Europe, inside of Europe, with a free country.
Let's assume all of that is true, just for argument's sake. What did the US do to Libya?
To Libya?
Yeah.
Basically an invasion.
Yeah, destroyed it. There's now slave trade in Libya. What did the US
doesn't
do?
mean there was no before.
Okay. What did the US do?
They did have a totalitarian government in Libya who wasn't a democracy and who didn't have any freedom of speech.
Okay.
So the beginning of the situation is different. On one side you're attacking a democratic country, on the other side you're attacking a totalitarian country.
Oh, and Ukraine
That's absolutely
is
different,
just as democratic as Russia is.
What, Ukraine?
Yeah.
No, Ukraine is way more democratic than Russia.
Okay.
Even though Ukraine
In
does
what way?
have a lot of
In what way?
oligarchs.
In what way is Ukraine more democratic?
Okay.
The thing is, every single time you say Russia's worse, I ask you for an example, you say, well, freedom of speech. I can give you plenty of examples of freedom of speech in Russia. You say to me, Russia invaded a country. Well, if Russia invaded a country, that's fine. For argument's sake, we agree with that. We're not going to debate that. What you're saying the US hasn't been? The US invaded Iraq.
Russia invaded a democratic country in Europe, a peaceful country with which Russia had signed a contract of non-aggression when Ukraine gave up all of their nukes to Russia, which was the stupidest thing ever, by the way.
The US made up a lie about weapons of mass destruction to invade Iraq and killed millions of people. Just US sanctions alone in the 90s, Madeleine Albright agreed it was worth it, killed 500,000 children.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with what they did.
So
but
stop
what Russia
saying
does is
Russia's
worse.
any worse.
Because it's worse.
How many million people died in Ukraine? How many million people died in Ukraine?
You need to understand the situation.
How many people died in Ukraine?
The situation.
I understand
in
the
Ukraine,
situation.
there's a democracy. People don't just die by the millions without anybody noticing. In a democracy, in a totalitarian regime, people can just disappear. Nobody will be able to say anything because it's close to the outside world. Obviously, there will be more losses when fighting against a totalitarian regime.
Right.
Always.
So how many million people died in Iraq?
And I don't know how many million people died in Iraq. You tell me.
At least a million.
At least a million.
At least
Okay.
a million. Okay.
In the war.
How many people?
Wait, soldiers or actually unarmed civilians?
Unarmed civilians.
All of them. Every single one of those million of people was unarmed civilians.
Well, are you saying that the whole Iraqi army was killed?
No, man, I'm saying that the numbers that you're bringing
Yemen alone,
might not be
if you
accurate.
look at Yemen alone, which is another beauty by America, look at Yemen alone, UN estimates 200,000 civilians. Okay? I mean, I could list it over and over and over.
And what will your point about all of this be?
Sorry?
What is your point about all of this?
My point is that if you're going to say Russia is totalitarian, agree that so is the US, or so is France. You
what
do
did
realize
France do? Wait, what did
in
France
Russia the law is the constitution comes first. That's the law. Okay, so you could say Russia's a totalitarian. I'm telling you what the law in Russia is. The constitution comes first.
Okay, it doesn't matter what the law is when you got a president for life.
Okay, what about Merkel? How long has Merkel been around? I mean,
yeah, I don't like Merkel either.
Okay, I'm not saying you like Merkel. All I'm saying is France or Germany or all these countries, they're no different. They're big governments. That's what happens when there's a big, powerful government, unfortunately. And at least the US has guns.
Has Germany invaded anyone?
Sorry?
Has Germany invaded anyone?
Well, Germany was invaded Afghanistan, yeah. They're part of the coalition of the willing. They're a German
invaded
soldier.
Afghanistan.
Are German soldiers in
With the
Afghanistan?
Soviet
Hang on a
Union
second.
or with the
Were
US?
German soldiers in Afghanistan post-2001?
Okay,
Answer,
sure, some of
yes.
them were, yes.
Yes, so there we go.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But was
Same with
Germany...
Belgium and France, all of them.
Okay, wait. Who are they invading with? With the Soviet Union or with the US?
With the US.
With the US, excellent. But many people were invading also with the Soviet Union.
Sorry, say again.
The Soviet Union was also invading Afghanistan.
Yes.
I don't know what you're trying to do here. Are you trying to make me say they're as bad? I can't say they're as bad
But
because
I'm showing
people.
you they're as bad.
You can't say that
showing you
because
that.
people from the Soviet Union have been fleeing to those Western countries that you talk so much shit about. Because living in those Western countries is better than living in the Soviet Union and in Russia. And that's something you don't understand.
Living here is exactly the same as living in Russia. What's different?
Well, for example,
Hang on a sec, what's different?
Extreme poverty in Russia.
There's extreme poverty here.
Not like Russia.
What do you
come
mean?
on.
Come on, what?
Rubbish.
What?
I've seen documentaries about
Oh,
Russia.
you've seen documentaries, oh, okay.
Oh, what have you
Ah.
seen?
Documentary
Dude, your
about
argument
St.
is you went to
Petersburg
Russia a few
and
times, you know
Moscow.
everything about Russia. What
No,
kind
I'm
of
not saying
argument
I
is
know
that?
everything about Russia.
Okay,
Come on,
wait, so I
son.
can lie to you. I can say I went to Russia for a holiday for like a
Okay,
month. Do I
okay,
know
go on.
everything that
Okay.
goes on there? Of
Okay,
course
so
not.
let's talk about
It's a
the
stupid
standard.
argument to make, man.
Okay, but, all I'm saying is living in Russia is not really different to living in the UK.
That's bullshit.
Dude,
That's bullshit, man.
All they've
Why?
got is
That's
Moscow
bullshit.
Tell me,
and
tell
St.
me.
You know
Petersburg.
that, tell
Everywhere's
me.
poor.
Tell
Okay,
me.
first of all, prosecution of
example.
homosexuals.
Prosecution
One of the
homosexuals.
differences. Yeah. In Russia, homosexuals get beaten up to a pulp.
I totally agree that that's
Okay,
a huge
that's one
social
difference.
problem that Russia has.
Excellent.
But you will.
We're making
I get,
progress
yeah,
now.
Okay, but it's just like the US has racism as a social problem.
Racism.
Yes.
They're randomly finding black people and beating them up.
Well, just look at. There's plenty of examples of racism in
Yeah,
the US.
exactly. Black Lives Matter. That's a perfect example of racism. Black Lives Matter, yes.
I agree. There are cases where Black Lives Matter members have behaved in a racist way. I'm not saying, I'm not coming at you from the liberal position of.
I
the
know
US
you don't. No liberal would ever defend Russia.
Yeah, well,
I think the key difference is that a lot of the anti-homosexual sentiment in Russia is basically endorsed by their own government.
Exactly.
Which makes it even worse than other countries.
Yeah, but it's not endorsed. Firstly,
2010
it's legal to be homosexual.
I know,
Okay.
but
So you can't say that it endorses.
No, but they have that law that
demonstration in
says
Russia,
about
there was a group here
they
called
consider
White Safe
homosexuality
Gay.
propaganda.
They did a big march, homosexual march.
The law is to say any
Moscow,
sexualization.
and the
of,
Russians
like,
were
say,
beating them up, and there was one guy, a gay, this Russian, he had a
I
cross.
don't agree with that law.
He had a cross. He was gay. He was holding a piece of
there are videos on
I didn't
YouTube
actually see that, honestly.
In 2010.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Check it out.
Which have a
He was on the floor, he was
blockade
holding
around
the
them
cross,
to
he was
prevent
going,
counter-protesting.
Damn, man. Okay.
I can show you.
But I've seen a British
Demonstration,
homosexual
gang,
activist,
homophobic.
Peter Thatchell.
Yes.
I've seen him get
Famous
arrested
group from over
Yes.
here went there.
Russia.
They're all gay. They
Under
were
what
beaten up.
charges?
under charges of being
He was holding a
promoting
cross.
homosexuality.
There was one
Are
guy
those
as
the
well. I think.
charges?
Yeah, the
I'm pretty sure those
cross.
are
He was
the
going
Okay,
to
we need to look into the charges.
He's a homosexual activist.
And in fact, the biggest issue in Russia, I would agree, as a Russian citizen, is the tolerance towards him. It's a huge issue. But however, if you
What
look
about
at,
alcoholism? Another big issue.
no, but we're talking about that's like saying, okay, what about the opioid crisis in the US? I mean, it's just
Come
as
on,
bad.
man, it's not as bad.
What? You know how many hundreds of thousands of people
Right
die from
now.
opioids?
Right now.
Yeah, the opioid
Right now.
crisis.
It's not a. It's a bit.
Do you
as
know
big
what
of
the
a problem.
opioid crisis is?
I know.
Yeah.
Opium. Drugs.
No, prescription drugs. The opioid crisis.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not like it's not people shooting up heroin. It's people being prescribed opioids.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So it's just again, it just goes back to
No,
Russia
no,
has
wait,
issues
wait,
and
wait,
America has
wait,
issues. Yeah.
It's different when you buy alcohol to when you buy opium. It's different from each other. It's not the same, man.
In Russia, they make it in the
No,
bath.
it's hang on a second.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
worse
The government,
in the US.
the
It's
government
worse
is
in the US.
getting a lot of money from getting the people drunk because a drunk populace is easier to control.
No, it's worse in the US because in the US, the pharmaceutical industry has so much influence in medicine that it influences doctors to overprescribe opioids.
Yeah, that's true.
In Russia, at least, people have their free will to buy alcohol, not buy alcohol.
Well, they make
Have
it.
you seen? Look, have you? Okay, this is something that I need
Well, I
to
just
speak
shut
about.
that point down. I just shut
No,
that
you
one
haven't.
down.
No, you
You have got a problem with alcohol in Russia.
Of course.
It's at least
Yes,
as
they brew it at
bad.
home.
If I'm
the
going
bar.
to make any
Vodka.
concession, it's at least as bad. Because
blind.
if you
As
have
bad.
been in Russia and if you know anything about Russia,
okay.
you know that when you, for example, watch the Russian TV or the Ukrainian TV for that matter, every single second or third commercial is about vodka, beer, vodka, beer, vodka, beer.
Yes.
It's everywhere, literally everywhere. It's a perpetual part of their lives. They're being indoctrinated to keep consuming alcohol.
Bro,
No
nobody
question
in my
about that.
family drinks heavily.
Sure, I don't drink. I'm Ukrainian.
Yeah.
My father doesn't
So-
drink. My mother doesn't
so
drink.
what I'm, so it's
start
sort
with
of a
lager now.
stereotype that like
It's a stereotype
everyone is
that's
being
true.
totally indoctrinated into drinking alcohol.
Yes, they are. People are being indoctrinated to drink alcohol.
Lager's a big problem as well.
So
They
what-
start with
so-
lager.
So you're
I've seen
saying
it.
that because there are
Vodka is
adverts on
worse
TV
than
No, they
It's
start with
beer.
lager as a starter, then
you're
they
saying
go
because there are loads of adverts
from
on
there it
TV
goes to
for beer, therefore
Did you see it?
the Russian government is
It goes to
bad
French TV then.
because, or
Because they
the
went to
Russia
the
is
French
bad
markets
because
and
I don't understand.
Russian influence itself is bad because they brought that influence to Ukraine. Ukraine didn't always have such a great
goes from
problem
lager
in
to
drinking.
vodka
With the
to
Russian
aftershave.
influence, with the Russian vodka producers,
What do you mean? When?
it got
When was
worse.
this? When was
Because,
this?
bro, because
But I
Russia
like the way
has
he
a
said to
huge
like, the table
monopoly
for the
in
lager.
producing
He
vodka.
goes to
You know, Stalin,
This is not
Lenin tried to
drinking.
kind of.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with overproducing vodka.
Vodka isn't bad
Russians
as
could
a
drink that.
substance.
Sure.
Overuse of vodka is bad.
Sure.
You could drink vodka totally responsibly. Look at the UK. Most people
Good
drink
job,
vodka.
good job, dude. When I look at the commercials,
fashionable.
when I look at the commercials in the UK,
Yeah.
I see a lot of charity commercials. That's the special thing about the UK. There's a lot of charity commercials. I don't see that shit in Portugal. I don't see that shit in Ukraine. Only here. Like people here are crazy on charity for some reason. Even though charity is a bunch of baloney. I worked for charity. I know that it's
That's fine, I agree.
most of them can't be trusted.
Yes.
In Russia,
Vodka
it's
became
different.
fashionable here.
In Russia, in Ukraine, the media is mostly
mostly
about
beer
vodka.
adverts. You know, it's mostly
No,
beer adverts.
mostly about vodka and some beer adverts.
In Russia, it's pretty much beer adverts.
Sure, whatever.
You might
You
see-
can say it's beer, not
What are we
vodka. It's still
arguing about?
alcohol.
You're saying
We're
Russia's
arguing
alcohol.
what
Yes.
is worse, to side with
US
Russia
has an
or to
opium.
side with the US.
You go on a Friday night.
It depends on what
I
situation
read
that's
the
in. We've
story.
agreed.
I say
If
on
Russia-
almost every situation it's better to side with the US.
Okay, but
It's very, very bad for you.
You
It's
said to me
detrimental to
Russia
side
is
with
more
Russia.
totalitarian. I asked
It
you
is.
why. You said freedom of speech. I gave you example of exactly the same things happening in France, in the UK.
It's not exactly the same thing. Look, I can be in France, I can make a video, I can make a whole channel talking shit about the Russian government.
Same with
I see,
Russia.
no, there's almost no people who will speak out about what's going on in Russia.
What about
They'll
Navalny?
be prosecuted.
What about
What
Navalny?
about him?
He has like one of the biggest YouTube channels. He lives in Russia. All he does is talk shit about
Have a
Putin.
glass of wine. Don't get drunk.
What are you on about? This is like,
Here,
it's-
they
you know
get
what's so
drunk.
weird for me as a Russian
What is it?
person?
What is it?
Walk out
Go
the bar,
ahead.
This is why I get annoyed. As a Russian person,
Okay, get annoyed, go ahead.
yeah, that's not important that I get annoyed. I'm just saying, what's weird is, as a Russian person, I know what it's like in Russia, okay?
Russia's first time I'm mixed with
So I know what it's like in Russia. I know things you
This is the
can
lucky
say,
one,
you
right?
can't say,
One
whatever,
point.
right? But I also live in the UK, so I know what it's like in the UK. And when people tell me,
In the morning,
oh, in Russia, you know, you can't speak openly, I give you plenty of examples. People like Navalny. People.
That's not much.
I met anti-Putin protesters in Russia in the middle of the street.
They're bright red in the morning, man.
I mean, this is what frustrates me. It's like you're telling me the sky is green, and I'm like, but it's blue.
Look, bro, I find it very hard to believe that you're actually telling the truth in what you're saying right now.
What, that I'm Russian?
No, not that you're Russian. I find it very easy to believe.
Okay.
What I find hard to believe is that
That's
you
a
actually see people,
Yeah.
that you actually see people speaking against Russia.
Sorry, say again. Sorry.
What I find hard to believe is that you actually see people speaking against Russia in Russia.
Type
It's
in
a
Alexei
commonly,
Navalny
bro,
on
it's a
YouTube.
commonly known fact
Hang on a
that in
second.
Russia there's a lot less ability to speak out about this in public. And the very fact that homosexuals get beaten up openly in the country already shows you some red flags that you can't have any
Dude,
opinions,
listen,
you can't have
listen,
any
listen.
opinions that you
My-
want to have.
My cousin made her profile picture on Facebook. She filtered it through with the LGBT flag. Okay,
So?
if Russia is such a, if Russia's so, it just goes to show the myth of how.
Oh yeah, the myth, definitely.
No, no,
it's
no,
not
no,
like you
no,
admitted
no, no,
that it happened.
No, no,
a
no,
while
no, no,
ago.
no. I'm saying the myth that it's as bad as people say. The perception is that it's illegal to be homosexual in Russia, which it's not. It's
No, that's
legal.
not my perception.
Religion,
I never
though.
said
The
it's.
Orthodox religion. The Orthodox religion is homosexuality is not an
why,
abomination.
yeah,
It's an
Well, no
abomination.
religion.
Yeah, but
Look,
if you
no
were to ask,
religion
if you were to
defends
ask my,
homosexuality.
if you were to ask my opinion, I think that this homosexuality, lack of tolerance towards it in Russia is an issue that's already on its way to being solved. Because I haven't met a single Russian person ever in my life who isn't tolerant toward whatever people's personal choices are.
Well, you can say that, but that's
Yeah,
personal
so
opinion.
that issue is literally comes from the older generation. It's something that's being petered out.
Sure.
Yeah. So
You can say that, but that's as good as me saying,
What
okay,
about
yeah.
that
and you're saying
Because there's proof that there is intolerance to homosexuals in
course
Russia.
there
There's
is.
solid proof of that. Now, what
Okay.
you're saying, there's no solid proof of that.
what? Of what?
Of people not being intolerant to homosexuality in
didn't
Russia.
work.
There's no proof
And the
of
way they
that.
got rid
There
of
is
the
proof
women,
that there is intolerance to homosexuality.
Wait, I mean, there's Russians who protest for tolerance towards homosexuality. Then, so the people that you're saying get beaten up are the people that are my proof. That,
No, man, I'm telling you, people get beat up, and you can't deny that.
Okay, people are getting beaten up in Paris all the time. The yellow vest protesters.
Okay, but
their
look,
issue is
Well,
separate.
that's bad. What aboutism? That's
causing a lot
what.
of
No,
damage,
but
though.
that's
Stick to the
no,
argument.
but that's our whole point. I never said Russia's good. I said if you're
It's the
gonna,
whole argument of Russian
No,
apologists.
no.
Oh,
I
what about
said-
this in Russia?
Don't
Oh,
get
but
the-
America.
No,
Those
but
yellow vests
let me
tried that in
explain my
Moscow, they'd have been
point.
shot.
I'm not saying Russia's good.
real bullets.
I'm not saying
They
we
would.
should look to Russia to see how
Even
things
America
should be
is
done.
not
I'm saying if you're going to say Russia's totalitarian because someone doesn't have their freedom of speech there, that's fine. But look at the freedom of speech of people getting beaten up in Paris, France, or look at.
But they're causing a lot of damage to property. The yellow vests.
Kind of
Okay,
are.
have you seen
They're
the
burning
videos?
cars.
You've seen the videos of the old ladies getting beaten with.
I haven't seen them. No.
Yeah, watch them.
I've seen the yellow vests.
Honestly, I've heard of
But
these
they've caused a
old
lot of
ladies
damage.
getting beaten up. I haven't seen a whole lot of old ladies
haven't.
getting
You
beaten
haven't looked
up.
then. You should look harder.
To be honest,
Well,
he has a point. Considering
maybe
the
you
French-
haven't looked
the French
hard
are
enough
very-
to see
the
the
French are
Russian
very-
weapons coming
He has a
into
kind of point
Ukraine.
because the French are very hypocritical when it comes to human rights. The French.
But the
Okay,
yellow vests
in
have
which
actually
way?
won their point.
And
right?
the fact that the French government have been known to be huge abusers of human rights for a long time.
Something
They
like
would
60
criticise
people have
other
lost their eye in Paris by the way.
Yes,
And-
I've
and-
seen that. I've seen
People
that.
lost their life in Ukraine when getting shot by the pro-Russian government.
Okay, but people lost their.
1812. My God, what are you on? The French are around. So you say.
Well, the French government has constantly been totalitarian for a very long time.
In which way?
Sorry, what are you saying?
If you don't care, then why are you in this discussion?
In which way?
About Russia.
Against their own people, against the Algerians.
Yeah, in which
in
way? What are
Africa.
they doing?
Well, they've killed loads of people. For example, they killed, when Algeria was technically part of France, they killed about 1 million people. They killed people in Paris who were Algerian. They've beaten up people, any protesters very heavily and been heavy-handed. Now, I don't like the yellow vests because a lot of them are racists, a lot of them are shitheads. But at the same time, the French government, they've been known to commit atrocities for a
They
very
back
long
down,
time.
haven't they, the government now?
Yeah,
They back down because I'm willing to look at the
They have.
pensions.
But that's because Macron is now taking a more rightist stance. He's gone more right-wing now.
They've won. The yellow vests have won, basically.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but this is how it works. These uprisings, they
But
always,
the French have
it
always won.
always comes
the
to a
farmers,
compromise.
they block the horses
Yeah,
tractors, they get what
Because
they want.
they got a huge protest
Here,
culture.
we're useless. We
Yeah.
don't do nothing.
Go-
We go one day, then we give up.
Like in France, they have a huge protest culture.
Yeah, and they win.
Yeah.
They
Well, no, it's not really. It always ends up in a compromise.
In the 80s and the 90s, the French farmers, they were winning. They were blocking everything.
But you got to
with their
remember, a lot of
tractors.
these yellow vests, they're Le Pen supporters.
Okay.
So this is Le Pen's way of putting pressure on
But
the
they
current
did cause
French
a lot of
government.
damage. They're not peaceful protesters.
But anyway, nowadays there's a lot of things that have happened in the West that are not as the West was beforehand. Nowadays there's a lot of these tricks that the West is doing, especially in terms of subversion in their own countries. There's a lot of subversion going on. Dysfunctional ideologies like socialism prospering in Western countries. That's something I want to talk about it, but I'm not sure why exactly it's happening. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, according, in terms of that. So I'm not advocating for Ukraine that it's good for Ukraine to join the EU or to side with the West, because the West is self-destructing in many different ways. And Ilhan Omar and Jeremy Corbyn are the best examples of that, the traitors of this country and of the US.
I think that
Ilhan
was
Omar
the
from
last straw
US.
for Putin when when they were going to go to join the EU. I think that was the last straw for Putin.
Well, of course it was.
That's why he invaded.
Yeah, but we talked about how countries, the US defends its interests. Russia
It was less
you
EU,
can't
more
face
NATO.
what Russia did in Ukraine. You need to give example of the US doing something similar.
No, because my point isn't Russia are the good guys. That's not my
How are
point.
you defending them then?
I'm defending them in that particular situation, that it's absurd to single Russia out as Russia being
He has a
Russia still didn't admit to have any intervention.
He has a bit of a
The
point.
US hasn't officially admitted
He has a bit of a
weapons of
point.
mass
He has a bit
destruction
of a point.
in Iraq being a total.
I don't agree.
The
with
US admitted to every
Wait.
single invasion they've done.
Just let me finish, quick. Just a second. I don't agree with what the Russian government does. I have huge disrespect for a lot of things that Russia has done in the past. But at the same time, I do agree with this gentleman that Russia gets attacked for a lot of things that Western countries may do actually worse on.
For example,
Middle East. For example, a lot of Western countries have done much worse.
Middle East.
Your only point, his point, your point was that, well, what America did in Iraq isn't as bad because Iraq isn't democratic.
No, my point is the Iraq government is against their people and against all people around the world. They're a jihadi government. They only defend themselves. Not in Iraq. In Iran.
Okay.
Jesus. I'm getting.
Well, the Iraqi government now is quite.
I meant the Iranian.
Yeah, but the Iraqi government right now is a puppet.
I gave you the example of Iraq.
Yeah, they're very
Iraq.
puppet.
Okay. What do you want to?
But my point is your point was that Russia is worse because Russia attacked Ukraine, which is democratic, whereas the US attacked, while it did attack Iraq and it was all a big lie and it clearly wasn't freedom or whatever their point was. It's okay. It's okay because, or you didn't say it's okay. You said it's not as bad because Iraq wasn't democratic.
Well, that's one of. Look, you're simplifying the
You're basically
situation.
saying that because Ukraine agrees more with what your
Bro, the
views
situation of Iraq and the US is there's a lot of
It was
a
a very
lot
simple
more coming
situation.
from Iraq to the US than coming from Ukraine to Russia. Ukraine did literally nothing to Russia. Absolutely nothing. All Ukraine wanted was to have a closer relation with the West.
I made the point to you about the pro-Russian protesters in Odessa who were killed during the Ukrainian uprising.
Pro-Russians who were killed during the Ukrainian uprising by Ukrainians.
In Odessa,
You must be
look it up. Look it up.
Well, what about the pro-Ukrainians that were killed in the east of Ukraine?
What about the pro-Ukrainians that were killed in Kiev?
that were detained in Crimea?
There's a war there, so obviously.
Oh yeah, there was a
that's no
war.
excuse.
All right, no. What's your point? What are you saying?
So you're accusing him. You're saying what the pro-Russians were killed in Ukraine.
he
That
said-
might have happened. I'm not disagreeing with you. But then again, you also had pro-Ukrainians who were murdered in east of Ukraine.
He said Russia did nothing.
And in Crimea.
He said Ukraine did nothing to Russia.
They didn't do anything.
Well, they didn't. He's got
The thing that triggered Putin's response.
They didn't invade Russia. You guys invaded them.
The excuse that Putin used was that Ukrainians wanted to make Ukrainian the only national language in Ukraine. Revolutionary, I know, right? Ukrainian the only national language. Very revolutionary.
Yeah, but loads of people in eastern Ukraine talk Russian.
So what? They have to learn Ukrainian.
Yeah, but that's their country.
It's Ukrainian, you
but
speak
this is
Ukrainian.
as far as I understand, this is what happened. There was a split to where many Ukrainians agree with what you're saying, but many Ukrainians don't. And so it's not like all Ukrainians were united and what they agreed with and Russia rolled in. And again, it goes back to the point of if you hold Russia to the same standards as the US, it's totally understandable from a geopolitical point of why they took Crimea. Because the Black Sea port has been under Russian control for decades.
No, Russians were allowed to leave their ships in the port, in the Ukrainian port.
And the reason,
happened.
but the reason that happened is because Russia didn't foresee that the Ukrainian government might want to kick them out.
They didn't want to kick them out. They wanted to make Ukrainian language the only language in the country.
Okay, why did they want to do that anyway?
As for the port, as for the navy, why would they do that? Are you joking? Making one language for your country, they can't even do that.
No, but hang on a sec. Loads of people in Ukraine, their primary language is Russian.
So?
Okay, so what's the point? Not just in the Crimea.
The point is, you live in Ukraine, you learn Ukrainian.
So let me explain. So like I said, what's the point? What is the point of making that law?
Cohesion.
Why?
So are you trying to justify Russia invading Crimea?
Well, it depends what you're saying is in justify.
Was it right?
I'm trying to. We're discussing it, but I'm not saying it's such a clear-cut issue.
So you don't know if it's right or wrong?
No, well, it depends on.
It a bit of both,
the issue with that is there's always like I'll make a claim and then someone will say that's not true and they'll make a claim. Like someone could say, I could say there was Russian people being killed or whatever. Someone
right?
Okay, but look up what happened in Odessa.
Where?
In Odessa.
Yeah.
Do you know where Odessa is?
Odessa,
Yeah, but what happened at Odessa? Let's get real.
Yeah.
Let's look at it chronologically.
I can explain.
What happened at Odessa happened after the takeover of Crimea and after the conflict in Donbass erupted.
As far as I understand, what happened in Odessa happened before Russia.
No.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
Russia
I'm
went into
getting
Crimea
mixed up.
first.
Okay, but so it just goes to my point. The new Ukrainian government that came in, A, illegally, B, it had an extremist point of view.
Extremist? What was extremist?
It's extremist to force half the country whose primary language is Russian, and there's nothing wrong with their language being Russian. And by the way,
nobody was going to prohibit them from speaking Russian. Everything
was
that's
the guy's
going to
name?
happen is that the documents, the formal stuff that has to do with the country, with the documents, with the school system, would be Ukrainian.
Why would you do that?
Ukrainians. Because you're in Ukraine, you learn Ukrainian.
Imagine right now, Britain said that you've been to Wales, right? You know how even road signs and stuff are said there in Welsh?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Imagine England dictated that everyone in Wales has to do, every document has to be done in English. What if people want to speak Welsh? What's wrong with that?
Yes, but does that justify another country invading Wales and taking it from England?
No, but what I'm saying is that
because that's kind of what Russia did. They used that as a pretext to basically invade Ukraine.
Yes, they
which
did.
I can understand why they did that.
And
but at the same time,
they said Russian-speaking people.
No, but at the same time, it's morally wrong. And according to international law, that's illegal. That's illegal.
Yes, I agree that it's illegal under international law, and I would say it's wrong to do that if international law meant anything. But we know that it means nothing. We see how.
We see the power.
And that goes back to my point.
You can do what you want.
Yeah, and that's why my point. That goes back to my point is it's very important if someone says what Russia did in Ukraine is bad, as long as they understand that Russia's no different to the US. I'm not going to debate that person.
Russia is different to the US.
Well, that's
Can
why
I just ask another question? What do you think of the poisoning in Salisbury, the Novichok? Even though Russia didn't do it, so they say.
Well, what's the evidence that Russia did it?
Well,
wait. I'm not saying I'm denying it. I'm interested. What's the evidence that Russia did it?
The two guys that administered the poison.
Right.
They found their pictures when they were with the GRU.
Bellingcat found that. Bellingcat's notoriously, notoriously not a trustee.
Yeah, but
haven't they been positively identified as Russian GRU agents? Because I believe they were.
Bellingcat said that they accessed Russian passport files, which isn't. You can't just. It's not like there's this open database if you could look up any Russian citizen. That's what Bellingcat said.
Haven't they been
I read the Bellingcat
identified?
report.
Have they been positively identified?
By who?
As GRU agents. Because I believe they were
Not officially. The only identification of them being GRU agents came from a source named Bellingcat. And actually, the West has never. I mean, Theresa May, it was a whole thing going on. She never even accused. She just said it's highly likely Russia did it. It's highly likely Russia did it. They never gave any.
They were risking an international conflict, an international case, man. Obviously, they wouldn't say, "Oh, Russia did this." Man, it would be a big problem internationally. Of course, they didn't say that.
Shall I tell you why I think they done it?
Go ahead.
I think he saw how weak the UK had become. Let me try it and see what they're going to do. Nothing, and he was right. Nothing.
Absolutely.
I'm not denying that Russia did do the skip.
What was the point?
About the poisoning.
And the way they got rid of the poison was terrible. It wasn't even. They just chucked it away.
It's about
Two
Russia
other people
intervening
picked it up.
in UK
Could have
by
caused mass.
poisoning some people.
And Novichok's only manufactured
they don't.
That's in the Soviet Union. Okay, it's in the Soviet Union. But what is the Soviet Union?
Totalitarian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
what
know
does
where
that
the main
mean
source
to
of
you? I mean,
Donald Trump came from.
like,
So,
give me an example.
It means the government holds absolute
you
power
know where
over
else
the
there
people.
was a huge store of Novichok?
Does that mean they look into their Facebook and social media?
But what I'm saying is,
spy into their...
Well, yeah, that's part of
from
it.
the
Yeah.
What
West
about if someone
says
in Russia is like a
Okay,
reporter?
but I could say that
Are they,
the
they
West
seen as
deliberately poisoned the Skripals with Novichok, which we
anti-Russian?
know the West has. Examples.
What do you mean?
I'm saying the evidence.
I don't really have any evidence.
In Iran, you're Iranian and you're reporting about Iran, but you're working for a station outside of Iran. You're seen against the government.
Say this is how we keep
The thing is,
Literally
Russia had
telling
no
them the
reason.
truth, but you're seen as an enemy to the state. So you can't go back there.
And they got rid
But my brother-in-law,
did a spice.
he's Iranian and he can't go back there because he reports about things.
Yeah, that's a problem.
People send him maybe video footage, and then now I'm hearing that maybe I can't go because I'm somehow associated. No, I will go there,
7
but
years he was part of a spice.
there's still risks.
They wouldn't have swapped him if he knew enough.
He got a flight.
Sorry?
He got a flight.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he got a life. I think he did 7 years in prison.
He's executed for spy.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's definitely
So
a
what
sign
state
of
is that? What do you
totalitarianism.
call that then? What kind of state would you say that is?
Well, if a state has an absolute grasp
You say it's
of
totalitarian or it's a different...
well, it's not. Look, surveillance is not. I don't think it's enough to call a state that does surveillance on the people totalitarian. But there are more things to that. For example, physical enforcement. For example, you try to protest and you get shot. That's totalitarianism. That's the best show of totalitarianism. In Iran, I know.
They shoot them in the heart, in the head, and also
Yeah.
they don't allow them to go see their own, to go to their own funeral, the family. They don't
It's,
allow them.
Iran is definitely a totalitarian state, yeah. No question about that. We were talking about it a while ago, but
Then how could you compare that to Russia and say that's totalitarian?
well,
Does it
Russia,
seem-
okay.
Russia doesn't seem as extreme
Russia,
as...
yeah, exactly. Iran is worse than Russia in that sense. Iran is much more totalitarian than Russia. But Russia is more totalitarian than countries in the West, for example. That's my point. I'm saying that Russia is very totalitarian, but it's still not as bad as, for example, shooting people in mass on a protest. That's the the thing that.
Because they're not scared of an uprising. Because I think
Of course not. Yeah, they can just shoot
anyone
the
that's
people.
scared of an uprising, I think that's where the line is.
It's a big problem. It's a big problem. We were talking about it a while ago about the government in Iran and about the people trying to
I know,
protest
that's
against.
where I listen in.
Yeah, the people trying to protest and then getting shot because
You
they
know
were
when you first
protesting.
heard about that Ukrainian plane or the plane going down?
I knew straight away what happened. I knew straight away it was shot down.
Well, yeah,
It was just
it's
too
very similar to
coincidental.
what happened in Eastern.
I was thinking, it's got to be some sort of incompetence.
Definitely.
No, I think it was incompetence.
It was a mistake. They wouldn't do it on purpose.
paranoia,
but it was a
maybe?
stupid
They were a bit-
mistake.
Well, you know what I initially thought? Because I was following this on Twitter when it happened. Yeah? And after the plane thing, somebody reported a miniature earthquake in Iran. And I thought straight away, shit, somebody's probably dropped a nuclear bomb or something. I was like, fuck, this is getting serious. But then I looked again, and I saw a video of the plane crashing. And it looked to me like the missile hits the plane. You can see it.
Oh, so you saw the initial one?
Yeah.
Because I just saw one on fire and then it just went down.
But I saw the initial video where it looks exactly like an
There's a whole bunch
anti-aircraft
of
missile
videos
hitting
of
a
the
plane.
plane getting blown up.
Yeah, but I think it was just a case of like, because they did the missile strike, they obviously, the commander of the Iranian forces, he must have, he's going high alert.
But then if it's on high alert, surely fucking ban all domestic flights then.
That's it. That's my whole point, man. Like, how the bloody hell they have communication with the airports to know which planes and where and when
I have
they're
an interesting
flying?
theory. I have an
It's so
interesting
stupid.
theory.
Like,
And also you know what was also true, but to do with Ukraine as well. Do you remember there was a bit of Russia and Ukraine, wasn't it?
there was a plane shot down
Yeah, but
in
what
eastern
was that
Ukraine.
doing
Yeah.
in that airstream there?
But I have a theory about the Iran thing. Iran didn't give any warning to civilian airlines because they were thinking if America sends planes, they might turn back if they know there's civilian airlines there. Do you understand what I mean? So if America has a response, wanted to bomb Iran, they would have turned their planes around if there were civilian aircraft flying in the sky. So they were thinking, let's not say anything.
They might be
because
using the civilian airlines
as a shield to lessen an American response.
Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible. It's very, very possible.
But then some idiot thought it was a cruise missile and they shot it down.
Well,
I
it's
think
because
it was just an inexperienced.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was an incompetence.
they probably don't have the right technology to distinguish, the things.
Or the
But then
training
again,
or something like
yeah,
that.
exactly. If you don't have the right technology to distinguish a military plane from a civilian plane, Why are you even at war with a country?
No, but he didn't
Yes, it
explode
is.
in mid-air, did it? He didn't explode.
Bro, not only, that's also part of the reason, but if the technology is old, you can't see by any possible way what kind of plane it is. Some new technology. Well, yeah,
Do you
you need an
remember
experienced guy and you
1988?
need new technology.
Do you
of
remember
course.
1988?
They shot down the Iranian plane.
No,
the American.
Russia shot down the South
the Korean
Korean
one, yeah, I remember
747.
that. Yeah.
But that was flying close to a secretive island.
Yeah.
And they were calling them saying they weren't replying back, so they shot it down again.
No, but that's what happened. That's what happened in the Iran
That, I
thing.
think America
That's what happened in the Iran thing.
themselves.
The operator of the missile battery, he told his commander, "Shall I shoot it down?" The commander didn't respond, so then he did it himself.
He didn't have much time.
Yeah. He waited for like 30 seconds. Or
But
something.
the strange thing about it is, it took off from Iran. It wasn't
Yeah, I know.
coming into it. It took off from
Because he
Iran.
thought it was a cruise missile. It was flying
They
no
should have
range.
had the list of flights, civilian flights taking
Yeah.
off. So-and-so's taking off now.
Yeah.
So-and-so's taking off now.
Yeah.
Where was the communication?
Another thing you touched on was the sanctions.
It wasn't
Because
flying
you
into
were
Iran.
saying that they were still doing business. Because you know when in the beginning Trump said he's going to give them sanctions, maybe a year ago or something. But then now he says he's going with the cooperation with the UK, Germany, France on board. They want to do, I think, like proper sanction. I don't know, like some proper. So there's
I
no.
was saying about that. I was saying that I do know that they were having sanctions beforehand, before this whole thing happened. But at the same time, the Obama administration was discussing giving Iran nuclear weapons. So it goes both ways. They did have sanctions.
Oh
for
yeah,
Iran.
because it's linked with the
nuclear deal.
the enrichment thing.
And the nuclear deal as well. Yeah. That Obama signed.
Exactly.
What's Iran said? Because they said that they were going to break away from that.
Well, they
Yeah,
were
they're probably going to break
There was
away now
discussions.
because the assassination of Soleimani that killed that deal.
Will they? Will
Exactly.
I think they
of
will
course.
break away.
I think it. Yeah, I think
it's
it broke
dead
down
now.
completely now. Pretty sure it did. I don't think there was an official statement about
So what,
it.
is your background Iranian?
Half. But the thing is, why?
Arab or Persian?
Huh?
Arab, Persian, Turkish?
No, Iranian.
Proper Persian.
Yeah. But the thing is, why would they? Why would when they retaliated and said, they did it very tactfully. They did it where they weren't going to kill any.
Yeah.
So it tells me they're a bit scared. In my opinion.
Yeah.
And
I'd agree with that.
I don't know, because if they would have, I don't know.
How do you think the situation can be solved now?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But how do you think? Do you think that there's any solution?
Sorry?
Do you think there's any solution that can be done now?
I think behind closed doors, Iran does a lot of business with the West behind closed doors.
They do.
Just go down Cannon Street. You see the Islamic Bank of Iran.
Yeah, of course.
You know, there's lots of money going.
They do a lot of business with the West through Turkey.
There's a lot going, and there's a lot of
Turkey.
important people in Iran as well, from all cultures as well. So I think there's a lot of interest that maybe, I don't think the West really wants to go wholeheartedly in.
True.
But to be honest,
at the same time, it's a catch-22 situation because there's a problem in Iran.
Of course.
But from what I can gather, a lot of the young Iranians, they don't like their regime completely. It's probably subjective because from my own personal experience, a lot of them don't like the Iranian regime at all. And a lot of them are looking to either emigrate from Iran or try to change their system.
Against it because they'll shoot you.
But a lot of the guys in Iran who are doing basically the thuggish work for the government, they're not even Iranian. A lot of them are actually Arab Shia or they're Afghan Shia, and they work. What's the name of that militia? The Basij or something like that. What's the name of the militia? Basij militia.
Yeah.
A lot of them are actually Afghan Shia.
Or Sepa.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated situation now in Iran. Look, the big problem is that even people outside of Iran are getting involved in it because they are playing. It has people also from outside of Iran. So now the whole world will see their own interests.
You know the statement by Trump. He says we're not after the oil. We have our own oil.
Yeah,
what
right.
was that?
Yeah, right. Right. They're not after
It's not
the oil.
just about
getting oil for themselves. It's about controlling oil. So your
Of course,
opposition
yeah.
doesn't get
That's it.
That's it. It's about crippling a country.
Yeah.
Who's taking Venezuela's oil? I want to know who's taking Venezuela's oil.
Russia controls it now.
Yeah, exactly.
They control
Venezuela
it.
is a really fucked up situation.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
spoke to a
yeah.
guy from Venezuela. He told me that the people there actually wanted the US to give them weapons to fight against their government, but the US didn't want to give them any weapons because they decided not to get involved. Because their government in Venezuela is openly oppressing their people. Like they can't do anything. That's why he,
But is that because of a government or is it because of the sanctions? Because like the situation in Iran, for example, the economic situation is not the shortcomings of the government, it's the sanctions which they're imposing, which puts pressure on the government, which very in turn puts pressure on the people. So it's catch-22. It's not necessarily government which is imposing all of this.
Wait, do you think everything is going on in Iran because of the sanctions?
I think a lot of the economic situation, yeah, but I mean, if you're imposing sanctions on the oil, which is their number one, revenue, then yeah, it's going to cause problems. It's not the government which is like hoarding all
Well,
the
sanctions wouldn't change much anyway.
Yeah, but why were the sanctions imposed in the first place?
That's a separate situation. The point I'm making is the economic situation is imposed because of the sanctions. Yeah, it's not because of mistakes the government have made in terms of like economic
There's one point you forget. A lot of it targets state-owned companies in Iran. And anyway, even if those companies raked in billions of dollars, hardly any of that will trickle down to the ordinary Iranian people.
I'm not sure about that because they do have a very good healthcare system. Well, they did.
I'll give you that.
They also have. They take care of their people. I was just reading an analysis from
But
American
they're
who said-
notoriously corrupt.
Who said that the average person in Tehran, has a better lifestyle than somebody in San Francisco. And this is come from an analyst from the United States. So there is a lot of anti-Iranian stigma out there. I mean, you can't just blame everything on the government. You have to realize that if this for example, if tomorrow there was economic sanctions on this country, and what does this country have? It's just the banks. If people started putting sanctions on the banks there, this country would be crippled. Within a short period of time, because what else do we have? So we have to look at it like that.
But this country doesn't have a corrupt, basically, oligarchy. Clerical oligarchy.
Yeah, but you have corruption everywhere. Look at the wealth.
But not to the some more than enough. Not the level of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Let's get real.
The Soviet Union level of corruption. The way you're looking at it is that you have a lot of wealth, which is in this country we have a lot more wealth than in Iran. Which means that a lot more will trickle down to the bottom. Even though a lot of the top percentage here hoard the wealth. You get a little trickle. And the same thing applies to Iran. If you're hoarding wealth, of course, the top layer is going to get the big cake, and the rest of the people down at the bottom are not. If you let go of those sanctions, that country will thrive because they have plenty of resources. They have plenty of very talented people.
But a lot of the money that's been generated in that country are going towards kind of like foreign.
But that happens everywhere. It happens in third world countries. It happens here as well.
You said Britain is more richer than Iran, and I don't know if that's. Just the way the money's been distributed.
No, it's not being distributed. It's just the fact that there is a lot more wealth in Europe in general. Of course, you have a lot of people. Go see the 1% here. Like Tony Blair, he just lives not too far from here. All of their wealth is being put in offshore accounts to dodge tax. All the elite.
So what do you do? They go for the wealth.
The entire elite in the world, they have this attitude,
sounds too socialist.
Imran Khan, he was saying that a lot
you can't just take away people's
wealth. He's a multi-millionaire socialist. He's a multi-millionaire socialist. A true socialist.
It happens here. It happens in Europe. And I'm
That's
sure
a true socialist.
When Mr. Blair was in power, for the first time I changed.
Yeah, but you know why? He was actually a Thatcherite, but with a socialist.
No, he was more balanced.
He was.
More balanced.
No, but you know what I said? Tony Blair before the Iraq War, in that period, he was probably one of the best prime ministers the UK has had. Before the Iraq War.
I think I basically said what I wanted to say. I wanted to just, spread a bit of awareness.
Communist is against the nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like to have a bigger country working hard. Take that away from me, I'll be dead.
See what it does? Communism takes away from rugged individualism. So if you're entrepreneurial, like yourself.
Yeah, but
you crush.
These are not people like.
They'd crush you down. You know what you'd have? You'd only have maybe a little stall right now if you were a communist country selling hot dogs. You wouldn't get higher than that. I know.
Now I'm 76. I still open the restaurant. I don't know why, but
you know, for the hard work ethic.
Because I like, I enjoy it.
Well, I'll see you later, guys.
It's a communist against the nature. We're not born like
that. That's right. Yeah. See, communism wants to reduce human beings to robots.
Yeah, didn't deliver very well.
Yeah.
He had the 21 regional, but 21
It's like North Korea.
Like Mrs. Carter says, and the border can become. He said they want money on board. But some share and the
ContentCOE from your
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
The dying what? Did you have to stand there and slate anyone else? You can do your own thing. Did you have to stand there and slate? No, you stood there and
I told you Danny lost.
No.
I support everyone. I support everyone.
What she say? He just said I still support.
I told you Danny. Why have I told you to tell me you're sorry?
Stand there and do your own thing. Don't stand there and start saying.
Why do you think I'm anti-Tory? Why have I said that I'm anti-Tory? Come on, chat.
If you want to be a part of our movement and leave the dying Tommy Robinson movement, get in touch. No, you didn't. You said the dying Tommy Robinson movement. I hope you got this. Should I get it up and show the camera when he says it? Yeah? All right.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to have a chat if you guys want. Happy to have a chat. I don't want to have a chat. Come on, I'm not happy to have a chat. Let me turn around.